ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם
חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות, רשנים, זמירות וריקודים. חג פורים, חג גדול ליהודים, מסכות, רשנים, זמירות וריקודים. הבה נרישה, הבה נרישה, הבה נרישה, ברשנים. הבה נרישה, הבה נרישה, הבה נרישה, ברשנים. חייצו מלפני המלך והוי שושן צורו ושמחו Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. Here, there, and everywhere, that's where He can be found. Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. Here, there, and everywhere, that's where He can be found. Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. Here, there, and everywhere, that's where He can be found. Up, up, down, down, right, left, and all around. Here, there, and everywhere, that's where He can be found. Hashem is high up in the sky where birds and planes go flying by. Hashem is deep down in the sea where only fishes seem to be. Hey! Purim, Chag Purim,
חג גדול הוא ליהודים, מסכות, רשנים, שירים וריקודים. הבנה רישה, הבנה רישה, רש רש רש, הבנה רישה, רש רש רש. ברשנים, these the Gragers, Purim day, it's our joyous holiday. Happy song, singing strong, having fun this day. The chorus, Havana Risha, Havana Risha, rush, rush, rush. Havana Risha, rush, rush, rush. Baharashani. One more time from the beginning. Purim day, it's a joyous holiday. Happy song, singing strong, having fun this day. Havana Risha, rush, rush, rush. Havana Risha, rush, rush, rush. Havana Risha, rush, rush, rush. Baharashani. Once there was a wicked, wicked man, and Haman was his name, sir. He would have murdered all the Jews, though they were not to blame, sir. Oh, today will merry, merry be. Oh, today will merry, merry be. Oh, today will merry, merry be. En nash sam home taschen. And Esther was the lovely queen of King Achashverosh. When Haman said he'd kill all us, oh my, how he did scare us. Oh, today will merry, merry be. Oh, today will merry, merry be. Oh, today will merry, merry be. En nash sam home tash. She's a wonderful woman. She's brilliant, she brilliant and sweet as anyone in Shushan and a Jew on the street. And they will tell you that Esther, the best of them all. Good old Esther, the queen of the ball. One more time. Well, she's a wonderful woman. She's brilliant and sweet. Ask anyone in Shushan and a Jew on the street, and they will tell you that Esther, the best of them all. Good old Esther, the queen of the ball. La 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 la. One more time. Well, she's a wonderful woman. She's brilliant and sweet. Ask anyone in Shushan and a Jew on the street, and they will tell you that Esther, the best of them all. Good old Esther, the queen of the ball.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei HaMlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bochim
How blessed we are to be together as we join one another in a sacred time, in our regular opportunity to embrace our fuller selves, embrace our higher selves, embrace one another, embrace the divine in our lives, all the goodness that surrounds us and all the goodness that is within us. And of course, we are on the eve of celebrating a very special Shabbat, as we will call forward Drew Glantz for the first time of being a bar mitzvah to lead us in worship and to read from our Torah. We are so excited. He'll even be offering us some words of prayer on this very Shabbat Eve, and we're just very excited, all of us, in anticipation of tomorrow morning. As we do so, we embark in the lighting of divine in our life, the light of goodness, the light of truth, that is the beacon which leads us in our world, no matter what the difficulties and the challenges and the uncertainties of our lives. And so it is my pleasure to call for Drew's mother, Nikki, who will lead us in the kindling of our Shabbat candles as we turn to page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Let us light this light and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light this light and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
On page 8, I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities so too in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and then to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. As we come together on Shabbat, we are actually realizing a dream that was first conceived many, many, many generations ago, that we would not each one of us walk this world alone or separate, that we would come together, strengthened in covenant, strengthened in our attachment, in our love, in our affection, in our affirmation, our devotion for one another, and for our shared connection to Judaism and to faith. The prayer that we're about to cite, Lecha Dodi, symbolizes that same type of devotion, as it is the prayer that evokes a wedding day. And so as we make our way in the prayer of Lecha Dodi, we welcome in the Sabbath bride, as we symbolically represent her partner forever in this world, the connection between Judaism and the Jewish people, between Shabbat and the Jewish people, between God and the Jewish people. And so as we come together on Shabbat, if we feel that same type of sense of devotion that a bride would meet her groom on their wedding day, we hope that as you experience your bar mitzvah and as you embrace Judaism, that you feel that same sense of not only devotion that has been carried through the generations, but also realize the aspirations, the dreams that you have, not only of coming together on Shabbat, but all that you'll lead forward with the ethics, the morals, the teachings of Judaism that lead you to not only dream to come together on Shabbat, but dream fully, using this experience as a foundation for whatever dreams are to be fulfilled in your life. Let us continue with Lecha Dodi as we dream our dreams of our childhood, as we dream the dreams of our present, as we dream our dreams of tomorrow. Lecha Dodi, page 20.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala פני שבת נקבלה, שמור וזכור בדיבורך תשמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, שכל תפארת ולתהילה. lecha dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. lecha dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה, התעוררי כי באורך, קומי אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. lecha דודי לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. lecha dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לילה 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 לילה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere, and the possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the divine presence. As we remain standing, our call to worship, page 28.
La 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 Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vahed Leolam Vahed La 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 la
Continue on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Va'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וכשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
As we continue on the top of page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, and that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. As we continue our prayer of hope and redemption, Micha Mocha, page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך, מלכותך, ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי ענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל לי גאל ישראל.
The pathway to finding our ways on dry land, the pathway of certainty, the pathway towards stability and a foundation of peace oftentimes is not straightforward. Oftentimes there are many bends in the road, but we know from each week to week we have the promise of being able to come together on Shabbat to renew, to restore ourselves, to reflect, to consider all that we are and all that we can be as we continue to keep the Sabbath, to keep the promise of seeing in ourselves God's light in our world. V'shamru, as we continue to guard the Sabbath. Page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל, בני ישראל, ושמרו את השבת. לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת לעולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל, בני ישראל, ושמרו את השבת. לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת, לעשות את השבת לעולם.
As we turn the page, prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields. Prayer may not mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can sustain the living. Prayer can provide hope. Prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Let us rise for our tefillah, page 46.
Adonai sefati tiftach ufi yagit tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך חוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה, רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים ואמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך מימין ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל.
You're holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Bless you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Friends, please be seated. At the bottom of page 55. Disturb us, Adonai, ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai, deny us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 57. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence, and our longing to do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds our minds, we look inward for the answer to our prayers, and there may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance, and that our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who may seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha bira na'avod. Let's pray together at the top of page 59. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha l'chana'eh l'hodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha. Tasim leolam, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav, tasim leolam. Ki ata umelech Adon lechol, Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol, Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha. Tasim leolam, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav, tasim leolam.
Let us take a few moments of silent prayer and private reflection, guiding language that may be found in our prayer books, or whichever prayers may spring from our hearts.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יא נה נה די די, נה נה די די, נה נה די די, יא נה 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 די, נה נה די די, יא נה די די, נה נה די די, יא נה נה די. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יום נה נה די די, נה נה די די, נה נה די די, יא נה נה די, יא נה די די, יא נה די די, יא נה די די, יא נה נה נה.
As we continue in our worship service, we take an opportunity to lift up those in our lives, members of our congregational family, members of our own families, or even two perhaps in need of prayers of healing of body, mind, and spirit on this Shabbat. As my eyes meet yours, please share aloud with our sacred community and our sacred space, those in our lives in need of such support at this time. To these names we also offer Ann Becker, Richard Blanke, Howard Dorfman, Seth Gelwasser, Kathy Greenberg, Dr. Robert Greenstein, Don Gustin, Don Harvey, Larry Juris, Hannah Cates, Don Lesney, Phyllis Lewis, Charles Messing, Sharon Metzner, Lori Miller, Louis Montiel, Andre Peterson, Elwood Powers, Diana Ramos, Gabrielle Rosenthal, Molly Salsitz, Melina Schroeder, Harry Smith, Larry Smith, Amy Sponseller, Leonard Standers, Ray Strauss, Phyllis Thurman, Charlie Wolf, Martin Zoffman, Jerry Topping, Reese Plost, Michelle Plost, and Cecile Plost. Our prayers of healing may be found on page 253.
מי שברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב, מי שברך אמותינו, שרה רבקה, לאה ורחל. May the one who bless our mother, may the one who bless our father, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear Yirapeh, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and made stronger by the power of your love. Mi sheberach avoteinu Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Leah veRachel. May the one who bless our mother, may the one who bless our father, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
A large measure of Parsha Shmini in the book of Leviticus concerns the issues of our dietary practice, what kashrut or being kosher might mean in our day and age. And I know that our bar mitzvah will have some meaningful reflections to offer to us tomorrow morning as we studied the Parsha and Drew considered more fully what being kosher may or may not mean to him as a Reformed Jew, and how its ethical or moral teachings still may inform the world that we all live in. But my remarks tonight actually reflect on a different section of of Shmini, of the Parsha, and it really begins at the beginning of it, because the beginning of the Parsha is an account of how on the 8th day, Aaron is now, after the tabernacle has been constructed, as it's been assembled, as they've reached this moment after having left Egypt, of having gone to this activity to some efforts and through some challenges, they finally erected their sacred space, and they have now the solemn responsibility of promoting or elevating from among them a individual who will serve in the high status of leading them in ritual affairs, none other than the vocation of a high priest. And as Aaron assumes this responsibility, the Torah offers us some words. It shares with us in verse 7, V'yomer Moshe el Aaron, krav et el hamizbeach v'aseh l'chatcha v'altecha v'chaper b'adcha v'ad ha'am v'aseh t'karban ha'am v'chaper ba'adam asher tziva Adonai. Moses says to Aaron, come forward to the altar and sacrifice your purgation offering and your burnt offering, making expiation for yourself and for the people, and sacrifice the people's offering and make expiation for them as God has commanded. Aaron, by this point, certainly knows what to do. He has certainly been prepared for this moment. He's certainly, we would expect, after all this experience of all this growth, that he would very likely be able to immediately assume this activity. The Torah offers us interesting words. It says, krav et el hamizbeach, meaning come closer, the grove, to approach, to make yourself in closer proximity to the mizbeach, to the altar. And the rabbis ask, why is it necessary to encourage Aaron to come closer to the altar? Shouldn't he already know that, okay, he has a job to do, and he might even be, you could consider, excited. This is finally his opportunity, his moment to finally lead the Jewish people in ritual in an activity that they so much require in a space that they've gone to all this trouble and that he is being provided for and has gone through a whole ceremony actually at this point, and yet it's asking Aaron to come forward. And it doesn't just say it once, it repeats it. The next verse actually begins with that same word, karov, come closer, or he came closer. And so the rabbis ask why. Why, or what could have been this understanding of a reluctance to lead? I can very much relate, at least from my ordination experience, that same sense, and I've heard that from other ordinees as well. And I'm uplifted in knowing that, having read recently a person who actually wrote a dissertation called A Reluctance to Lead, says that there is something good about, something encouraging that I found, that having a certain amount of hesitation to assume a measure of leadership, it actually suggests some good qualities about a leader. And I think that's all well and good. And I think perhaps in part it is that good leaders sometimes come from places that have maybe come from unconventional backgrounds, or don't necessarily fit the mold as expected, or perhaps they don't see themselves as strong enough or empowered enough. And so perhaps some of that hesitation, that reluctance, means that someone is stepping forward into that role not in spite of, but because of those attributes that would otherwise have prevented them as being seen as leaders at other times or under other places or other instances. That perhaps that hesitation comes from recognizing that there is a new opportunity, a new day and age, a new moment, and having certain qualities of leadership for that individual fit that time and place, and it requires the courage to see in oneself those abilities to meet that moment at that time. This past week, I believe we lost in our country one such leader. And of course, I'm referring to our former Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. As many of us have heard, Madeleine Albright was born in Prague in 1937, only 10 days after Czechoslovakia had been occupied by the Nazis. Her family escaped and eventually made its way back after having left to the Czechoslovakia, where her father was a diplomat, and then following a time of communism, made her family did, to the United States. Her experience of growing up in Yugoslavia and then fleeing to the U.S. really made her, if not once in her life, but twice in her life, someone who saw in herself the need to confront in its fullest measure totalitarianism, authoritarianism, and fascism. And there's another dimension of her growing up that I think is worthy of note. For those of us who may not have read it this past week or may not be aware, Madeleine Albright was actually born Jewish, but claims that she did not know this or was not aware of this fact until she was but 59 years old. That her parents converted at age 5 to Catholicism, and she grew up believing she was Catholic, and then later on in life converted to Episcopalianism in order to marry her husband, is what they worked out in their arrangement. But it wasn't, she says, until many, many years later, actually during, some would say, and there's perhaps even some inconsistencies been suggested in the story, which Madeleine Albright did not necessarily appreciate, that she found out when being interviewed by a reporter of the Washington Post who had done some homework and had found out that she had indeed had Jewish origins, and that not only did she have Jewish origins, but why had she not wondered why 3 of her 4 grandparents were no longer alive and had been victims of the Nazis? And not only 3 of her 4 grandparents, but 26 of her family members perished in the Holocaust as Jews. And so she wondered why perhaps her parents didn't share with her earlier. Why? Perhaps when she was a young adult. And she said that she wished that they would have. And as she made her way in life, this person who had Jewish origins, who had a family, who obviously was aware of global affairs and had fought and been challenged by all forms of tyranny, she became the leader, the representative of our country, of the United States, a country that she claimed as her own, and led us through some very difficult, challenging periods. Most of all, she's really recognized, first of all, for an attempt, and some would say successful, in the reduction of nuclear weapons in our world, something that she was regularly put a lot of effort into. Also, during the Bosnian-Serbian conflict and during the Clinton administration, there had been already many atrocities that had been committed. And Madeleine Albright spoke up and said that it was necessary for the United States to become more involved, despite a great deal of pushback from military establishment, in particular many who felt that we would be entrenched in a Vietnam type of episode, or others in the establishment who literally declared it Madeleine Albright's war. And what did she do? And we can appreciate this all more so in this moment. She demanded that the administration become more involved by having airstrikes that would intervene on behalf of innocent civilians. And it was only after many massacres, including some would say 8,000 to 10,000 innocent victims at that point, which, by the way, we've heard that some of the accounts now in the Ukraine are growing and growing by the day, that it was someone like Albright who said, no, we must intervene, we must have an airstrike, we must stand up for the people who are falling prey to these atrocities. Of course, there was a stain on her that she acknowledged fully, that the Rwandan massacre, over 800,000 people were killed, and the United States chose not to intervene during that period, a period that she had of lack of involvement, and that she herself admitted had quite a bit of regret over that episode, the greatest regret during her time of service, as well as was shared by President Clinton, who also admitted was his greatest regret as president. Even so, in that time period between the end of the Cold War and 9/11, Madeleine Albright was part of a growing and necessary broadening of our partnerships across the world, the strengthening which we now see as ever so necessary of NATO, and the knowing that the canopy of peace in the world is not just held together by words, but also by a willingness to back up those words with action. And it's not a mere coincidence that Madeleine Albright, that she stepped forward because of some of her background of hardship, of suffering, of displacement that she had suffered, that she then became a champion of others who would suffer from the same atrocities, and to use the power of our great country to defend not only ourselves here, but those abroad. It couldn't be more fitting, though. Couldn't be more fitting to offer to you words of Madeleine's, of her own, that she offered none other than at not Aaron's ordination, but indeed at the ordination of rabbis of the Hebrew Union College. She was actually asked to speak to rabbis. There's usually a laudatory figure who is asked to speak at our ordination ceremony, but a few years ago, Madeleine Albright had that privilege and that honor at the Hebrew Union College, of which I am an ordinee. I was not there for this. This happened a couple years after I had been ordained. And I'll just want to read these words of hers from that ordination ceremony. Religion is not the problem. The problem we face is our incessant failure as human beings to keep pride in us from curdling into hatred of them. And that is when plowshares are pounded into swords and religion becomes a pretext for violence. Not long ago, after September 11th, I was on an interfaith panel with Elie Wiesel. He asked us to name the unhappiest characters in the Bible. Some said Job because of the trials that Job endured. Some said Moses because Moses was denied entrance into the promised land. Some said Mary because she witnessed the crucifixion of her son. Wiesel said he believed that the right answer was God because of the pain God surely must feel in seeing us fight, seeing us kill, and seeing us abuse each other in the Lord's name. And that's why I believe that we have no greater task than to build bridges of understanding and tolerance before mutual ignorance and insecurity harden into an unbridgeable chasm of hate. And that's also why I believe that you, as graduates of this storied institution, have no more important duty than to ensure that religion is a positive force in the affairs of the world. It is about a man who does nothing. She continues with a story reflecting on this truth. It is a story about a man who does nothing but complain about all that is wrong in the world, the cruelty, the pain, the repression, the disease, the poverty, and the suffering. Day after day, the man whines to God and bitterly accuses God of seeing all this agony and not lifting a divine finger to prevent it. Finally, a voice is heard thundering down from above. "Stifle yourself," it booms. "I too am grieved by the hardships endured by mortals. But you're wrong to say that I have done nothing to make possible a better world. In fact, I have done everything necessary. I created you." It'd be wonderful to think that we had not made God the unhappiest character in the Bible, because in the end, our religious texts include enough rhetorical ammunition to start a war, and enough moral uplift to engender permanent peace. If institutions such as HUC and people such as you help to make sure that that peace is the message that we all hear. My offering from tonight is to heed the wisdom of the Torah and to heed the wisdom of Madeleine Albright's life. That this figure, who was of diminutive stature, but 5 foot tall, a Jewish lady who might, some would say, have been hesitant, reluctant to claim fully her Judaism, or perhaps was not even strengthened by her Judaism that she came to know more as an older adult. Someone who was not born in this country. Someone who claimed this country as her home. Someone who had fought, but yet had felt the stings and the sufferings of persecution and of displacement. And yet she overcame all of that to become closer, to step fully into her purpose, to claim fully that sacred purpose, to claim it fully not only for herself, but to help to lead others in a place of uncertainty towards a better place, towards a better destination. As we dream our dreams on this Shabbat, let us, as we claim the heritage of Madeleine Albright as one of our own, and as we claim ourselves also in the heritage of a priestly people, let us remember that however unlikely, however uncertain, however unconventional that our backgrounds might be, that we all see ourselves as having that opportunity, that strength, that courage to step forward, to intervene, to step forward, to make a difference, to step forward to see fully the dreams that we have of ourselves and for a better world. And in so doing, be God's partners towards peace in our time, towards peace for those who are suffering, and for peace for our world. Shabbat Shalom. Let us rise for the adoration. Page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Friends, please be seated. Page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We turn to our mournful meditation on page 291. יש כוכבים סערם מגיע ארצה רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים זזיב זכרם מאיר כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המבהיקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך. There are stars up above so far away we only see their light long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memory keeps shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest nights, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways that we remember. On this Shabbat Eve, we remember those who have been recently taken from us. Phyllis Cantor, mother of Brad Cantor, the mother-in-law of Julie Frazen Cantor, and the grandmother of Joshua and Samantha Cantor. And so, too, we also remember those who have been taken from us at this season in years beforehand. Louis Adler, David Beatler, Sidney Cohen, Jack Frelling, Bernard Gordon, Leon Gottlieb, Rose Hunter, Dorothy Israel, Clara Kahn, Shirley Kersner, Kim Kozak, Ann Laster, Murray Lender, Adele Levine, Herbert May, Jules Mink, Morris Petreka, David Reich, Henry Roth, Maurice Rothstein, Charles Rothstein, Rose Schechter, Daniel Sepler, Ruth Slafer, Abraham Wallach, and Belle Wolf. Are there any corrections or additions to the yortzites for this Shabbat Eve? Would all those mourners who are present please rise? And I ask the remainder of the congregation to please rise. Our mourners' Kaddish may be found on page 294. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabba, v'amad divrach yirtei v'amlich malchutei, v'chaye chon uv'yomei chon, v'chaye techol bei Yisrael, v'gala uv'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'elam umei amaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'rechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechamata, damiram be'ama v'imru, amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn, to which we offer. Amen. Please be seated. It's my pleasure to call forward our past president of our congregation, David Topping, with some words of welcome on our Shabbat and a few announcements.
Shabbat Shalom from the Board of Directors of Temple Solel, and thank you, Rabbi Plost, and thank you, Fiddler on the Bima. Our second dose of planting prayer and blessings of Broadway this past Wednesday was just as great as the first one. I highly recommend that you join the Rabbi and the Cantor this upcoming Wednesday night at 7:30 as they explore the connections among our Jewish liturgy, the current events in the world today, and Broadway. This week we were taught about George and Ira Gershwin and spoke and heard a lot about the music from Porgy and Bess, specifically Summertime. Tomorrow morning at 9:30 is Rabbi Plost's Torah study, which you can join either in person in the Rabbi's study or virtually. It's a great educational experience and a lot of fun. There will also be a Havdalah service tomorrow at 5 p.m., where Drew Glantz will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah, and we wish the entire Glantz family a mazel tov. Next Friday at 5:30, the Tikkun Olam Committee will be hosting a vegan Shabbat dinner at TY Park, which will be followed by Shabbat services at the park at 6:30, correct? Rather than our regular Shabbat here in our sanctuary. So please make note of that change for next week. Both religious school for our younger students and confirmation class for our older students resumes on April 3rd. Thank you to Vicki and Steve Stolberg for sponsoring tonight's Oneg in honor of their daughter Samantha's wedding to Brandon Reach, and we wish the Stolberg family a mazel tov. And thank you to the Glantz family for sponsoring tonight's Bima flowers in honor of Drew's bar mitzvah. Please let me know if any of you are interested in sponsoring upcoming Onegs or Bima flowers. As this is the last Shabbat of March, what better way to conclude the month than to talk about college basketball? Congratulations go out to the Florida Gator men's basketball team for hiring new head coach Todd Golden. Coach Golden played basketball professionally for 2 seasons in Israel's top division for Maccabi Haifa and competed in the Maccabi Games here in the United States. He is a dual citizen of the U.S. and Israel. We wish him the best in Gainesville. Go Gators. And Shabbat Shalom.
Talk about David's dreams being realized. Let us continue as we elevate ourselves and consecrate our service with our Kiddush. It's my pleasure to call forward David, who will co-lead us in the service of Kiddush. So I ask the congregation to please rise. You together, biyachad, yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תפילה למקרא קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי באנו בחרת
ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת אמן לחיים. Closing hymn, אדון עולם, אדון עולם, אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא. והוא היה, והוא הווה, והוא יהיה בתפארה, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא, בידו אפעיד רוחי, בעת ישן ועירה, ועם רוחי גווייתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא, אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
Full measure of our strengths, being able to overcome any reluctances we may feel to pursue the dreams in our lives. May we do so always to lift up others who may be more vulnerable than ourselves, that we may create a world that builds bridges and bridges of faith, bridges of peace, and bridges of well-being for all of God's children. Shabbat Shalom.